Sometimes you sit down at the poker table and you fold for hours before you pick up a playable hand. Sometimes you sit down and you start getting hit with hands right away. This is one of those sessions where we start picking up cards right out of the gate, and the first hand that we pick up is going to be 8-6 suited on the button. Now granted, it's not like we have pocket aces here, and 8-6 suited can be a challenging hand to play, but in position I think it's a pretty powerful hand, and especially when you see a player in early position limp, everyone else folds, and now the action is on me. I think this one definitely merits a raise, trying to isolate with the player who limped at early position. So I bump it up to 15. Small blind gets out of the way, and the big blind puts in the call, and the limper puts in the call. So we didn't get our wish of going heads up, but we're going to go multi-way here to a flop of Ace-King-5 Rainbow. Not the best flop for our exact hand, all things considered. So when the big blind checks and the under the gun player checks, I think I make a mistake here and check back when I should be range betting. While it doesn't connect with our exact hand, it does connect with our pre-flop raising range, and I think I stand to have a lot more Ace-X hands here in my range than the big blind and the under the gun player. But I check, and we see the 7 of hearts on the turn, which gives me a straight draw. We see the king of spades peel off on the river. Doesn't improve our hand, but when we see the big blind check and the under the gun player check here after both betting and calling on the turn, I think they're pretty weak, and I should go for a bluff here, I think, on this river with our 8 high. There's no way we can win at showdown, so when I check, I think it's just a big blunder, and yeah, we end up losing to pocket 8s here, which I think is just a terrible mistake. I think we should be firing out on that river. I don't think the big blind is going to have all that much, and I think under the gun obviously is not going to be very strong either, so I think a bet would have taken that one down. A few hands later, we look down at pocket 6s in the big blind, and we see an early position raise. Under the gun makes it 15. Middle position player puts in the $15 call, and it ends up folding around to me in the big blind, and I think I can easily defend here. I think 3-betting would be a mistake against an under-the-gun raise with a hand like pocket 6s, although you could get a little adventurous and give it a shot. I put in the $10 additional, and we go off to a flop. And unfortunately, the flop is no help to us. It's queen, queen, 9 with 2 diamonds. I go ahead and start things off with a check, being out of position, and the under the gun player checks, middle position player checks, so we go to a turn card, which is the 5 of hearts. I go ahead and check again, and now the under the gun player decides to retake the betting lead. He stabs for $25 here. Middle position player puts in the $25 call, and I think the under the gun player would definitely do this with a hand like flop trips, and I think the middle position player would do this with a hand like a flush draw. I just get out of the way, but we'll go ahead and run this one out and see what happens. The 4 of diamonds peels off on the river. Now the under the gun player checks, and the middle position player bets out for $45. The under the gun player thinks for a little bit and then decides to go ahead and put in the call. So we're going to go to a showdown, and the middle position player turns over king, jack of diamonds for a river to flush, and the under the gun player pretty quickly just mucks his cards and ends up losing this one. So I think he probably had a queen there that he was slow playing, and unfortunately the river just did not work out for him. I quickly identify that the players in the 4 seat and the 5 seat are going to be the action players at this table, and I look down at ace-jack of clubs and raise it up to $15 in middle position, trying to get into a heads-up spot with one of these 2 players. The 4 seat does go ahead and put in the call, but the 5 seat gets out of the way, and everyone else folds as well, so we do get our wish here. We go heads up with the player in the 4 seat, out of position though, unfortunately. We end up seeing a flop come down of ace, 10, queen with 2 spades and 1 club. We've got top pair with a decent kicker and a backdoor flush draw. I think that's good enough to fire out a continuation bet, but I think I go a little too large here. I bet $25. I should go like 15 or 20. He puts in the $25 call, and we're going to continue to a turn. I'm praying for a club or something that's going to give me more equity on the turn, but that's not what we see. We see the 10 of spades, which brings in the front door flush, and it pairs the board. I think he's going to have a lot of like 10x hands that want to call on the flop, so I slow down here and check, and he quickly fires out for $50. Now he could definitely be doing this with a bluff. He could have a spade in his hand and be drawing to the nut flush or a flush on the river. So I think I'm compelled to call here. I think our hand is a little too strong to fold here on the turn. So I do go ahead and put in the call, and we're going to head off to a river. And the river card is even more disgusting than the turn card. It is the king of spades, bringing 4 to a flush. And now I just think we're beat unless he checks back, and he does not check back. He basically puts himself all in. He bets almost his whole stack. So he's never bluffing here. This is an easy fold on the river. I get out of the way, and he ends up taking this one down. Don't think I could have done too much different there. I may have been able to check on the flop and see what he wanted to do there, but I think as played, it's probably fine. The player in the 4th seat has been going on quite a run. When I sat down at the table, he had maybe $200 in front of him, and now he's sitting on about $500. And I look down at pocket nines. We see a raise from an under the gun player to 15. I go ahead and put in the call, trying to invite the player in the 4 seat and the 5 seat along for the ride. And that's exactly what happens when both players put in the call. And we're going to end up going 5 ways here to a flop that comes down 9-4-3 with 2 hearts, giving us the stone cold nuts on the flop. Big blind starts things off with a check, and the under the gun raiser slows down and checks as well. I started this hand with about $470-ish dollars, and I want to start building a pot so we could try to get all the money in the middle. So I fire out for 55, and the button, who is our friend in the 4 seat, quickly calls. Everyone else gets out of the way. The small blind folds, the big blind folds, and the under the gun player folds as well. So we are going to continue heads up to a turn. Let's see what we can do on the turn. Dealer, put a safe card out there for us. It is the 7 of diamonds, which shouldn't change anything here on the turn, and I go ahead and fire out for a large size here. Again, I'm trying to play for stacks. I make it 200 to go. I throw out 2 black chips. Player in the 4 seat immediately announces all in, and I snap call. A couple of the other players who are watching the hand say we have set over set. I turn over my top set of 9s. We see the ace of diamonds peel off on the river, and the player in the 4 seat turns over 4-3 offsuit. So he called pre-flop with 4-3 offsuit. He flopped 2 pair on a 9-4-3 board, but unfortunately your 2 pair is no good against my set of 9s. He was drawing dead. I mean, if a 4 came off, we were going to have a better boat. If a 3 came off, we were going to have a better boat. So he was in a world of hurt and just didn't know it until I turned over my set, and we end up taking down a big pot. Love to see it. Was trying to get involved with this player, was trying to win a big pot against this player, and we did exactly that. So always a welcome thing to see at the table when players are willing to call off with 4-3 offsuit. You are at a good table. And believe it or not, all of your feedback and comments help me to run good at the table, so please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future episodes. You don't want to miss it when I rake in big pots like this, and you don't want to miss it if I potentially lose big pots like this, because you get to witness my pain.
Maybe later. Maybe later. Thank you.
Sometimes you're running too good. We've got pocket aces. We are in middle position, and I raise it up to 15. The player in the cutoff, who's one of the action players, puts in the call. Button gets out of there, and both blinds call. So we're going to go 4 ways to a flop, which comes down queen, 7-7, rainbow. Small blind checks, and the big blind checks, and now the action is on me. And I think we stand to have the best hand here pretty often, and we can get called by a lot worse, like queen X hands. So I think I want to go ahead and fire out here. And I make it 40 to go. This gets the 5 seat out of the way, which is actually a little unfortunate. I was hoping he might tag along. But the small blind does call, and the big blind thinks about it for a bit, but eventually does get out of the way. So we're going to go heads up here to a turn card. And the turn card is pretty damn good. It is the ace of diamonds, giving us top boat here. So when the small blind checks, I think I just want to check back here and maybe induce a bluff on the river, but the river is actually one of the worst cards in the deck. It's the ace of hearts. Now if he has a 7, he's just not going to think he's ever good here. He's going to put me on a lot of ace king, ace queen, ace jack hands. So I just bet really small here, trying to just get a crying call from any queen or a 7. I think he probably would call with a 7 here because it's a small sizing, but he says, I don't know how you run so good with 2 aces, and then just ends up letting his cards go. So he folds, and we end up winning a small-ish pot here with our quad aces on the river. it really just isn't a great card. It looks like it's a great card. You know, when you first see it, you're like, oh, wow, I hit quads. But then you think, oh, man, that is just going to kill the action here. And indeed it did. So it's a little bit of run good and run bad at the same time.
Beyond luck.
Now it's just getting ridiculous. We're just getting hit upside the head with the deck. We've got ace, king of clubs under the gun. Coming in for a raise for $15, trying to target the player in the 5 seat. He is the action player that we want to get involved with. And it folds over to the 5 seat, and he does indeed put in the call. So we are going to go heads up here to a flop, out of position with the player who is pretty good action at this table. So I'm hoping we might be able to build a nice pot here. And the flop gives us top pair, top kicker. We see king, jack, 8 with 2 diamonds. Pretty wet dynamic board, and I start things off with a check here out of position, trying to induce a bet. And that is exactly what the player does. He bets. He makes it 20 to go. A pretty small bet, but I think we want to be going for the old check raise here. 65. We can get value from any of his flush draws. We can get value from any of his worst king X holdings, any of his straight draws. So I go ahead and bump it up. I make it 65 to go. Now I think I could be sizing up here, maybe going a little bit larger to like 160, somewhere in that area, maybe 8x his sizing. Trying to build a pot to make it easier on future streets to get all the money in would be the rationale there. So I think I went a little too small here on the flop, but it's not the end of the world, right? We're trying to build a pot and trying to get some value here from worse hands. So this puts the player into the tank, and he's got something. He's got to have a pair, he's got to have a draw, something here, right? Something worth calling, and players tend to be very prone to call with their flush draws and straight draws on the flop. They'll give it up on the turn, but they're very likely to call you on the flop. So this is one of the best streets to get value, but unfortunately he folds, and I don't know. I thought for sure he was going to have something that was worth calling there. So unfortunately we end up winning a small one here, but what are you going to do? You can't blame me for trying to get a little value here with our top pair, top kicker. Last hand of a very short session, I've got pocket 4s in the cutoff. The table dynamics have changed considerably. We've got 2 new players at the table. The player in the 5 seat is still one of the action players, and when it folds to me, I go ahead and raise it up here with pocket 4s in the cutoff. The button decides to call, and the player in the 5 seat is in the small blind, and he puts in the call. The big blind decides to get out of the way, and we're going to go 3 ways here to a flop. We see a monotone flop of jack 4-7 all spades. So we do flop bottom set on this board where we should be able to get quite a bit of value if they have any of the ace of spades, king of spades, queen of spades in their hand. So I go ahead and fire out here for $30 on the flop, and both players just snap fold. So no value to be had, unfortunately. I was hoping we might be able to build a little bit of a pot there to end the session, but nope, not going to happen this time. I did play for maybe another 15-20 minutes after this, but just wasn't as good. The game had tightened up quite a bit, so I decided to call it. Hope you guys enjoyed the hands. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I will see you all in the outro. This is like mid-session or end-of-session update. I don't know, I've only been playing for about an hour and 45 minutes. I'm up about $350, maybe $400. And the game was really good when I sat down, and now it's not so good. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna stay or transfer to another table or just call it a night. I've already got about 6-7 good hands that I can show you all that you're gonna see on this vlog. So I might just pack it up. I might just call it a night. I know you're not supposed to do that when you're playing poker and you're winning. You're supposed to sit your butt in the seat and keep playing when you're winning. But at the same time, if the game's not good, what's the point, right? So anyway, that's like the mid-session, end-of-session update, but maybe I'll stay for a while, maybe I won't. Not sure yet. Either way, I'll see you in the outro. All right, as you could probably tell, me being in the car, I decided to call it quits. The game was just not that good. Went back to the table, was there for maybe another 15 minutes or so, and then just decided to leave. So wasn't in the mood to do the whole table change thing and try to find a better game. I just thought, you know what, I can come back Tomorrow night, I could come back Friday night and Saturday night, or all 3 nights, and get into a better game. So that's what I'm going to do. Booked a nice little win tonight. Only played for about 2 hours. Was in the game for $700 and ended up cashing out for $1,045 for a $345 profit. Not bad for a couple hours of work. This is episode 51. Next week will be episode 52, which is officially 1 year's worth of weekly vlogs. So that will be the official 1 year anniversary of this poker vlog. And I want to thank all of you for all of the support. We've got over 2,000 subscribers, almost 2,100 subscribers now as I record this. Hopefully by the time you see it, we'll be over 2,100 subscribers. And it continues to grow. And I'm really astonished by just having 2,100 subscribers. So thank you all for the support. Thank you all for the comments and the feedback. Thank you for all the likes. And with that in mind, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell if you haven't done so already. I'll see you in episode 52. Good luck at the tables. Take care.